Welcome back, New World Fantasy Football. It's been a bit. We've been working through life a little bit, but we've been playing fantasy football the whole time. So, Paul, we are through 6 weeks as of now. It is a Wednesday night. The Mets are playing. Um, I'm hoping for the Subway Series. Go Yankees. But how are you feeling, sir, about fantasy 6 weeks into the season?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, man. I mean, obviously, you mentioned it. We're working through some life things, but fantasy never stops. Like even if the pod will stop temporarily, the games never do. And in that regard, vibes are high. I mean, in all three of the redrafts that I'm in, I'm in pretty good shape in all of them. And Dynasty obviously is not the case. I am still Owen Wilson on the season, but I'm not going to pretend that it was by design. That I wasn't drafting a team to try to tank purposefully, but made some bad picks. The process early in the draft probably wasn't great. And I made a realization pretty early on in the year that, like, yeah, this team ain't going to be it this year. So I am now Philadelphia 76ers circa 2014. Like, trust the process, shameless tanking, throwing a bunch of G leaguers out there to collect some lottery balls for the off season.
Yeah, man. Your dynasty league team is looking not great, but you have a few young pieces that could eventually hit, and you're not like, oh man, you need a 3-year rebuild, but this year is not going to be your year.
No.
My vibes, just dynasty wise, pretty good. I started out 0-2, but now I'm 4-2. My receivers woke up. Jamar Chase has been fantastic. Drake London is like the wide receiver 5 overall right now and half PPR. And DK's been pretty good. He's had some tough luck the last week where he caught a bomb, got called back, caught another not touchdown because his foot was barely on the line and things like that. But overall, I can't complain with DK. And I'm piecing it together at running back after Pacheco went down. My Tyrone Tracy has been pretty good the last few weeks. Rico Dowdle has been serviceable. I've got Kareem Hunt. Like Alex Madison is like somehow doing okay. So I'm kind of like piecing it together there. George Kittle has been great. Stay healthy, my wrestling fan king over there.
I'm right there with you, by the way. Pacheco and Kittle, but in another league.
Yeah. So and then the redrafts, I am 4-2 in the other redraft leagues, and one of
All
my Megalo Bowl, I'm like 6-6, but with
right, the league
whatever
scoring.
the
Okay,
league median, but the other
still
two I'm
still in it.
still in it. I'm in fourth out of 12 people. I'm in fourth place with that record. I don't know how. But yeah, the redraft leagues, one of them is going pretty good. I have Derrick Henry, who has been awesome, and overall been pretty decent over there. Pretty decent team, but my longest standing league that I've had for like over 10 years now, all my receivers got wrecked in a 3-week span. So even I'm 4-2, so that's good. But man, I went from starting Nico Collins, Rashi Rice, Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave, to now this week I'm starting Lad McConkey, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Demario Douglas. So life changes pretty fast.
Life goes actually fast in fantasy. Speaking of that, actually, that's a good transition. A couple things kind of stuck out to me there. Number one, how was it so fucking obvious in our faces about Derrick Henry? I mean, in the off-season episodes, you and I obviously were both slapping the table for him as a touchdown machine, whatever. But it's like, it's so funny how fantasy works. It literally just took a few weeks looking back, being like, man, it was literally that obvious. Derrick Henry plus Lamar and the O-line equals awesomeness. Like it seems like so linear and obvious now that like, how did the whole community not just make this man a first freaking round pick?
I think part of what happened was the ADPs, however the fantasy gods set them, had him like as a late second, early third. But by the time we drafted our main leagues that were like a week or two before the actual season started, he did rise quite a bit. I think every league that we were in, he went ahead of his, ADP on the platform.
Ahead of me in every league.
I know. All like 4 or 5 leagues you're in, whatever, you didn't get the chance to get him. But yeah, I felt great about it. I think if I was to go back and change things up, at least early on, maybe things change every week in fantasy, but like I would not have kept Bijan if I had 20, hindsight vision, and I would have just drafted like Saquon Barkley. Blasphemous, right? I know I'm a Giants fan, but I mean, it's fantasy football, so I want to win in fantasy.
Yeah, and
but
it's not like the man, if there was a contract there for him, he'd be a Giant.
Well, that's a whole other can of worms. I will say, Giants offered him multiple contracts. He denied them, but whatever. It wasn't enough for him. That's fine. I am not one of these people. They play this week. I am not one of these people. I'm getting the notifications that are coming on ESPN, and then you've got people on Twitter that are making it a big deal, and the drama and the Ricky Lake episode and the Jerry Springer. I don't care, man. I don't care.
Jersey, this, that, and the third. Like
I just don't care. Like Saquon's an Eagle. It is what it is. Like it wasn't going to work out here. And then when he signed with the Eagles and the Giants lost the first couple of games, people complained about Saquon leaving. Look what we lost with him every year. It didn't matter. Can we get
like it's the I mean, but like there's smart football fans, there's dumb football fans. I think like there's a very large community of dumb football fans out there. Like
yes. They're very reactionary and they don't think through the actual like context of what's going on with the teams.
We've said this. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time here because we've said it a bunch of times.
No.
Here. The RB is the cherry on top of the sundae. It's the like this is the piece to resist the Derrick Henry to Baltimore, right? Like, hey, they're one piece away, they're one guy away from really dominating. Yeah, go pay the old running back. Like, if you're one piece away, the Giants are like 6 pieces away. So they got some work to do.
It didn't make sense. If you don't have a foundation to put the cherry on top, then it's just a pretty looking cherry that doesn't really have a purpose. Yeah. So anyways, that's not what we're trying to go there. But overall, I would say our fantasy vibes are pretty good. The silver lining, I will say it's actually a pretty thick silver lining. Since Dynasty is the league that you are sucking in, you always have that like, well, I'm going to have a high pick and be able to reload. Dude, there's at least that.
It's so weird. I'm actually like, I thought that being like the 0-6 team was gonna like suck balls, but like it's actually kind of fun to like. I'm setting lineups. People, calm down. I'm not like doing anything shady to like not score points or whatever. But like, I'm making sure that like, I'm not like crazily like adding like 1 week fill-ins from the waiver wire or whatever. Yeah. Like I'm making sure that if I'm gonna be bad, I'm gonna be very, very bad and make it worth it to be bad. And I actually find that in a weird way to be fun. Plus, here's the reality of our league too. As you know, there's about 3 teams that went shamelessly all in for this season.
Yeah.
And so the way that I look at it is that I'm waiting them out. So, I'm kind of in the bushes. hanging back, watching these teams of 31-year-old geezer NFL players, and they're highly dominant right now, which is cool. But I have questions about the following 2 seasons on those teams.
Right. Yeah. I think sometimes youth can be overrated in Dynasty if you go to one extreme. But at the same time, yeah, there's players are going to start to age out. Like there are players that will start to age out, and you're going to have the name value that you're going to want to hold on to, and other managers in the league are just going to you're going to offer trades to like get picks, and they're going to be like, I'd just rather have my pick and get this young player who I believe in that might give me like 7-8 years of like really good production versus the 1 year you're offering me. So yes, it matters to win now, but your team kind of picks what your plan going forward is.
Yeah.
And yours is not to win right now.
Yeah, I should have been more balanced in my draft strategy, but also like the early season injuries, like my team wasn't really going to be highly competitive, but the early season injuries were like the easiest excuse to just throw it in the shitter. Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to talk about that you kind of touched on and mentioned because of what happened to your teams, but it feels like the injuries, I mean, injuries always suck every season, but it feels like this season especially has just been fucking crazy.
Yeah. A lot of concussions too.
The concussions and 2-week concussions, multiple week concussions with Tua, right? Like, and I think that's the other thing that's underrated too, because it's like, okay, there's a crap ton of injuries, we can rattle them off, but there's also like the injury to Tua is an injury to one player, but it nerfs 5 players in fantasy.
Yeah. That's been, and not only does it nerf 5 players in fantasies, it's nerfed the Miami Dolphins. Yeah. They can't function. They just simply can't function. They are like a bottom 5 team without Tua.
Unstartable, which is the worst thing. I have a lot of shares of Miami everywhere. They're the worst kind of players to have because they're not startable, and they're also not really droppable because of the false hope you have.
And you have to hold on because Tua should be back, but it's not a guarantee. Yeah, it's one of those crappy situations. Situations that are changing though, because we've been talking now for about 15, 20 minutes recording. There's been some big trades just a few days ago with major fantasy implications. So I'll let you pick. Who do you want to start with?
Let's start with the trade that seemingly has been written on the walls for weeks now.
Yeah. Since his hamstring got tight.
Right. Since the phony hamstring injury. We'll talk about Devontae to the Jets. It's felt chalky. It, like honestly, leading up to it, I was like, dude, that's so dumb. Like, you're gonna bring another receiver in here, but like your kicker stinks. Aaron Rodgers, is he washed? Do we know like what's going on there? The coaching is bad. Obviously, they fired their coach. Like they have a lot of problems. That's not just a receiver. But I also felt like when they did make the trade, I was like, you know what? You kind of fucking had to do that. Like you're already in a bad spot as the Jets. That you sold your soul, you burned the ships to go all in on Rodgers, and it's not working out. So you can't fix age. You can't make Rodgers 37 again. You can't you can't really do much about the O-line or the coaching, but you can add another weapon. And so I think ultimately it is a good thing, but I'm just not sure it fixes everything on the Jets.
It's not going to fix the fact that Aaron Rodgers is not elite anymore. He is a middling quarterback, starting quarterback, still worthy of being a starter, absolutely, but he's not 2012 Aaron Rodgers anymore. Everybody knows that. Devontae will help. Devontae will help.
It was his MVP year, wasn't it?
Which one?
Didn't he get MVP in like 2020 or 2019 or something?
It wasn't. Yeah, he did win one not too long ago as well. Yeah, he's had a lot. He's had a long career of being amazing. He's past his prime. That's okay. You know what's crazy? A player that I've seen dropped around fantasy circles. Um, can you believe that this guy right now, half PPR, is the wide receiver 8, and he's being dropped? Do you know that name off the top of your head?
Wide receiver 8 being dropped.
Yeah, because of the trade.
Is it Wilson?
No, Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard.
Receiver 8?
Look it up, my friend. And in our leagues that we play half PPR, he's caught a lot of touchdowns. He caught like that Hail Mary, of course. He's gotten in the end zone a lot. It's actually pretty wild that he's that high and he's being dropped now because, yeah, I mean he's for the time being, he's not going to be startable unless somebody gets hurt. He's not startable.
Yeah, I mean, well, man, I think and this is going to be true of both trades that we're going to talk about here. I think you got to see the stuff play out for at least a week before you start panic trading, panic dropping. Garrett Wilson, he's going to be useless now. He's not going to get any targets. Like freaking Devontae Adams to the moon. He's back to being a top 5 wide receiver. Like Alan Lazard is completely eliminated. Yeah, maybe not. Football's weird. Can we give this a couple weeks to breathe?
If you have to make a projection of what Garrett Wilson's output is going to look like going forward, like from this point on, he is the wide receiver. What?
Blank. I mean, I don't know if I can give it a number per se.
Let me do this. Let me do this experiment. You ready?
Yeah.
This is a who would you rather have, Garrett or DK Metcalf? DK. All right. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver 19 right now.
I will. I'll go with Wilson, but it's close.
And that's how I feel too. I feel like it is close. I am hoping.
So wide receiver 2, he goes from like a wide receiver 1 play to a wide receiver 2 play.
Yeah, I think Garrett, as much as we've wanted him to be a wide receiver 1, as a fantasy community, I think that he really has been more of that mid wide receiver 2, like mid to high end wide receiver 2 with upside. Sadly, and he's also, the thing about his production, a lot of it has been on the back of a ton of volume. Like a few weeks ago, he got 22 targets. Not this past game against the Bills, the one before that. I don't even remember who they played, but he got like 22 targets. Had a good fantasy output, of course, but it took 22 targets for him to get there to like a 20-point game. And now that volume is not going to be there quite as much. So I think we're going to see the same kind of situation that we see with Waddle sometimes, that we see with Devontae Smith, that we see with T. Higgins at times, where that wide receiver 2, who's really good player, is going to have up and down weeks because their role in the offense isn't to be the target hog. And they kind of have to have that touchdown or that big play, or just have like a great matchup on the other side where like, okay, you're going against, for the Jets, they're not going to go against Sauce Gardner, but like you're going against Patrick Surtain, or you're going against Jalen Johnson, or one of these great corners that's a shutdown corner. Okay, now it's the wide receiver 2. It's his week now.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree completely. Like that is the the tough part about being the wide receiver 2 in a new offense is it's not going to be consistent. That's why I love wide receiver 1s, even on bad teams, because at the very least, your opportunities are going to be there every single week. And Devontae has been an absolute target hog in everywhere he's ever been. He is a high level target earner. He has a rapport with Aaron. But to make the Garrett Wilson managers feel better, there is an upshot conversation here. Wilson absolutely is going to get less targets, but he's, what if he's more efficient with those targets? There is such a thing as a lot of teams don't have two great cover corners. Most teams,
almost none.
a lot of teams don't have any guys, right? So I think he might have. I think he might still have fairly close to the kind of value that you've been seeing. It's just going to come in spurts. He's going to have big game, shit game, big game, shit game, big game, shit game, which is kind of the reality of every receiver that's not one of the true wide receiver 1 consistent guys, a la Justin Jefferson and what have you. I still like the kid's talent. I don't know that like the way that he runs routes and gets open is conducive to who Rodgers is right now. And I think that's part of the reason why they're doing this trade. But ultimately, I think don't go get too high or too low on any of these trades. I think that water's going to find its level here. And I think that the good news for everybody here is that the offense should be better. It should be better.
Absolutely. If it doesn't get more efficient, then the Jets have problems that we can't even start to explain. I will say the red zone is probably going to belong to Devontae. And it'll belong to the running backs, and I mean backs, because Braylon Allen I don't think is gonna go away. When I see zero, I have a lot of Brees, and when I see number 0 in the backfield around the goal line, I just grinds my gears. But yeah, I think Devontae is gonna be the red zone target, number 1, which is gonna hurt all the other pass catchers, of course. But speaking of wide receiver 1s, the Bills went out and got one, because
Yes, they did.
Their wide receiver core of Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and somebody else. I don't remember. There's somebody else that they're out there. Whoever I'm forgetting, tell me. Irrelevant. Like, not Dalton Kincaid, just wide receivers. Not exactly giving Josh Allen a ton of production. Keon Coleman, in my opinion, was always a very flawed prospect. He can still develop. He's a young guy. He's a rookie. He's played 6 games in his career, or 5 maybe. Did the Bills have a bye week recently?
No, they haven't had their bye yet.
Okay.
Look, I spoiler alert for the listeners out there. We put together a episode 3 weeks into the season that we decided to time capsule. And it'll be interesting to go back and see what sort of reactionary up and down takes we're making. But I have more thoughts about Amari Cooper. I will let you finish. But for all of my stroking Dalton Kincaid all offseason and smacking the table for him, play the taps, play the violin. It's over. It's over. He's a tight end. He's going to be fine, right? As far as tight ends go. But the dream of Dalton Kincaid, the wide receiver 1 on Buffalo, is dead officially. And it's been dying a slow death even before this. And that feels real bad. It feels bad for me.
Yeah, I was on the Dalton Kincaid train. I actually didn't end up with any of him, but I was on. Huh? What's that?
You would have.
Yeah. He got snaked for me in a draft, and thank God he did. But because I ended up with Kittle, which has worked out a lot better. But anyways, like, I love Amari going to be with Josh Allen, because I don't think he's going to play right away. It seems like the reports are that he's not going to play this week. It's only Wednesday. We'll see. But it doesn't look like he's going to play. That's fine. I really feel like Josh Allen and Amari Cooper, with them both being veterans now, are going to click pretty fast. And Amari is still a great route runner, and he wins deep. He's got pretty good hands. Like, dude's a vet.
Does he still have those?
I think so.
He's been dropping some balls this year. I know a lot of it's Deshaun, that Deshaun is awful, but
you know what, man? When you don't trust your quarterback and you're always like anticipating getting thrown into a hospital ball, that happens. You're just not as confident out there. I think that it's going to be a nice connection. I'm not saying he's the wide receiver one on the season, but I really think that Amari Cooper has a chance to be like a max out as like the wide receiver 9 going forward, maybe wide receiver 10. I think he's going to be pretty damn good. So if you have him on a roster, I don't have him anywhere. I've always been a Amari Cooper fanboy. So I explored a couple trades today, just kind of peeked around and said, you know what, there's really no value that matches up, so I just left it alone. But I would like to have Amari Cooper right now because I think his stock just got boosted. Devontae's did as well, of course. But
I agree. I mean, both of these guys did what we expected them to do, which is boosted their own value. I mean, to be fair, both Devontae and Amari's value was very, very low to begin with.
They were struggling.
So going to teams with good and competent quarterbacks obviously blows up their value. It also diminishes the value of those around them. But
let's go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I do slightly disagree with what you're saying about Amari. Not that I don't think Amari will be better, and he will be better. For those just listening, I just got the bird for that take, and I haven't even gotten into it yet.
You're wrong. I'm right.
So strap in and get ready because it gets worse. Amari is going to help the Bills big time, and he's going to help Josh Allen big time because, look, you said it, the Khalil Shakirs and Dalton Kincaids of the world, they are not built to be wide receiver ones, but this is the same offense that destroyed Stephon Diggs for 6 weeks last year. And the reason is that this is a run the damn ball unit and team. Did you know that Josh Allen still is not even in the top 20 of pass attempts on the season?
I did not.
They play at an extremely slow pace. They've got good backs.
James Cook.
James Cook. I don't know why his name is escaping me. Ray Davis, I think, broke out pretty good. And of course, Josh himself is a runner. So I still think the identity of this team generally stays the same. So Amari is absolutely viable. So I think if you have Amari, sigh of relief because he's startable. Of course, everything is dependent on each other in football, right? They're not throwing the ball a lot, but maybe it's because a lot of guys aren't earning high-level targets, right? So everything is a balance, but I still think water's going to find its level. So I'll just throw a little bit of cold water on the Amari Cooper thing that I don't think that this is an offense that supports like a locked and loaded top 12 fantasy wide receiver. I view Amari Cooper now as a more consistent wide receiver too, where, I mean, playing with the molester, he was barely a flex play. So it's good for Amari Cooper, but I just don't think it's wheels up on the wide receiver one based on that.
I can respect that take. I'll rescind my flicking off since you actually made some sense there. But as I said earlier, I've always been a Amari Cooper fanboy, so I want to see him succeed. Yeah, I think he's going to have some huge games, though, because he does get open deep. And Josh, what's that?
Is it RIP Khalil Shakir to you?
Yeah. he's not, he's a desperation flex now. That's it for me. Which before he was kind of like somewhat in that area anyway.
He was a solid flex.
He was a flex. Yeah. He's kind of like that a poor man's JSN, which, JSN's not having huge games himself, but he's been pretty consistent. So, yeah, and then I want to kind of pivot though, because the thing is, when these guys get traded, the doors are opening up a little bit. So
yes, they are.
Maybe not that sneaky, but a little bit of a sneaky pickup if he's available in any leagues. I mean, it's past waivers now, so whatever. But Jacoby Myers has always proven to be a pretty solid wide receiver. He gets kind of forgotten about being an undrafted guy, but like he was successful. Eventually, he was successful in New England. He's had big games for the Raiders. Yes, his situation kind of sucks. It's the same situation Devontae just left. But you know what? Sometimes when you don't have a target monster, a guy that's demanding so many targets, the offense can just kind of balance itself out. As Paul's been saying, where the water finds its level. Like, I'm not saying the Raiders are going to get better. They lost Devontae Adams. They're going to get better. No, they're not. But there's still an NFL offense that's going to have to find a way to move the ball and try to score some points. And Jacoby Myers is going to be a huge part of that.
Yeah, so he will be. For accuracy's sake, he is coming off an ankle right now. He missed last week. So
true, he did.
But here's the other thing. I looked up his stats. He's actually been pretty productive. Let's remember this though. We think of Devontae Adams as being on the Raiders. He really hasn't. What we've seen from the Raiders offense with Brock Bowers being the number one guy is pretty much what you can expect going forward, because they haven't had the man for 4 weeks. So, I think Jacoby is probably available in a lot of leagues because, we just
wasn't really doing much for some time.
And also, he's not exciting, right? Like the impending, Devontae Adams could come back probably leads to some people not, wanting to make the investment. I actually like that though. I think that now you can be very secure that he's at least a wide receiver 2 on a bad team, flex play guy. I think the more interesting conversation here is about Jerry Jeudy, aka Mr.
One, Jerry Jeudy.
Oh my God, Mr. Necessary on a garbage team. Does that sound familiar to you?
But let's just say, for argument's sake and for projection's sake, they finally go to Jameis Winston. Would you be excited? Would you be like, man,
oh yeah,
this could actually work? Like Jerry Jeudy himself, as the great Steve Smith Sr. said, is mediocre receiver. He was 100% right. But you know what? If he's going to get targeted by Wildman Jameis Winston at some point in the season, not a bad asset to have.
And he's been productive in the past with bad quarterbacks too, because Russell Wilson, for all of the hype that we gave him his first year in Denver, he's largely been a bad quarterback. And that's another interesting conversation that we can table with the Steelers. But Jerry Jeudy found a way to be productive. And that is the name of the game in fantasy football. As nasty and as filthy as it could feel grabbing some of these guys off the waivers, sometimes, and I will commend my co-host for this, sometimes I get the ick. I get the fantasy ick about certain players and certain names that I just don't think they're not sexy enough. I'll turn my nose up at or whatever. My man will put his hands right in that muck. He'll get right in the mucky muck. And he will find the nastiest starts off the waivers, usually with success. So when you
all right.
These guys, you should listen to them.
I do all right for myself every so often. I mean, I can remember, and that's the thing, man. I'm an elephant with spot starts. I remember the spot starts that have worked and some that didn't work. But I said it today. I said shout out to Andre Brown. If you don't know Andre Brown, it's because you're too young to know.
The ultimate spot start.
Andre Brown, my man, just holding it down for the Giants when we used to actually be a good running team. Some injuries, and Andre Brown was Man, he was a revelation. Started him on a Thursday night. He got me like 24 points. It was great. Isaac Redman. I sniffed that one out. They were actually playing the Giants. I was playing against Lee, and I needed a running back in the worst way. Looked in that waiver wire. I said, Isaac fucking Redman, you are going to start this week, and you are going to run through this my Giants defense. He had like 100 and a touchdown. I beat Lee with his own fucking favorite team's player. Donta Foreman has been just a freaking fantasy he's like the Undertaker, just out of nowhere.
Shoot! He's back. A shooting star. It's like he has his weeks of like amazing production that you have to find it. But then he will disappear. He'll disappear.
You know who's a hot name right now, who I've started on a Thursday night years ago when he was on the Browns, Dearness Johnson. Got me like 120 and a touchdown, one of those. Man, I don't forget because I have passion for this shit. Why? I don't know. But anyways.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, look, Judy's a name, long story short.
Here's a name. Anybody else that we even care about, like David Njoku, maybe his stock is slightly up, getting targets.
He's a tight end. Like a tight end, like
anybody who's getting targets at tight end, just
his targets are not good because as of right now, all we can do is just assume that they're coming from the molester. And those targets are oily and slippery.
Yeah.
And
a lot of fluid on that ball.
And so, yeah, no, it's no Diddy, right? But yeah, I mean, you can grab Njoku if he's out there. I don't know that he would be out there.
Probably not.
I think his arrow's up. But outside of that, dude, I'm not into it. Obviously, Nick Chubb is probably coming back.
He is back. He's practicing, which is cool to see.
I sincerely hope for the Browns fans that I know and the ones that I don't know that Nick Chubb comes back and is awesome, because that would give you something to be happy about in the season that has been a disaster. I think that it's going to take him a little while to ramp up. I don't think Nick Chubb is dead, because I'm never going to proclaim Nick Chubb dead unless he shows me that he's dead, because there are some guys that are just built different, and I think he's one of those
for
guys.
sure. And we're not, and we're going to find out soon. This week is not going to be an indicator. I don't think they're going to give him 10 touches like right off. I don't know, because I don't know what's been going on behind the scenes. I would bet they give him, I don't know, man, 5 to 8 touches, and then as the weeks go on,
see how he does. Because, dude, what's the point? They know their season's over. They're not stupid. They know it's over.
No, Stefanski's a great coach. He just has a shit quarterback, a banged up O-line. It's been tough for the Browns.
Again, I know we've said it 100 times, and I hate to keep drilling the knife deeper, but to sell your soul for the guy and he sucks, down horrendous.
Yeah. How the Texans doing nowadays?
Oh, pretty good.
Doing pretty good.
It's
good. Pretty good
right now.
Crazy, man.
Still using all those first round picks.
Crazy. This is a good way for me to segue, because I wanted to talk about quarterbacks. And there was another trade similar, all the drama not involved, but Bryce Young obviously benched for Andy Dalton, led to Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, do you know what his ranking was this past week? What QB, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
For fantasy?
For fantasy. What QB, what was he this week? What was his ranking? What did it come in as?
He was great. I mean, he freaking diced up the nasty-ass Panthers.
Jaguars,
rather.
Big cat.
Another jumbo cat.
Another big cat, yeah.
I mean, he must have been top 3 or 4, right?
He was the QB1.
Wow.
And I just want to say this, because I want to segue into this, because it's something I wanted to talk about. I am going at the risk of sounding very, very full of myself. I was able to pick up the QB1 on the week off of waivers. And why do I say this? I want to have a conversation. Because I think, Paul, I'm done. I'm done drafting quarterbacks early. And I want to list off the reasons why, because I have a few. I have the list here. This is on the season. Forgive me because some of them might have had bye weeks. Whatever. I'm going to say it anyway. You want to take a guess at who the QB2 is on the year?
I don't have to guess because I know. Baker Mayfield, baby. I'm a Baker bro. I'm in. Suck it, Kyle. Freaking bet wish you had his ass.
Wait, where the fuck was he drafted in fantasy?
He wasn't.
Exactly. Jaden Daniels. We were excited for him, but where was he drafted? 9th, 10th round typically?
In a lot of these.
You got 4 is Joe Burrow, 6th, 7th round. Number 5 is Josh Allen. Okay, cool.
Yep.
And then number 6, Justin Fields, who's not even starting.
Who just got benched?
Why? I mean, why Tomlin? Okay, that's whatever. Let me continue to make.
We'll talk about that.
Let me continue to make my point. You want to take? I almost want you to take a guess who the QB7 right now is in fantasy.
So I'm cheating a little bit because I did pull it up, but I actually saw this earlier when I was looking this shit up. It's Geno fucking Smith.
Geno Smith. Where was he drafted?
I mean, if he was drafted, it was
very late.
The draft.
If not at all. He's a free agent in our league right now. He's a free agent. He's the QB7.
Well, we never thought that their fucking that offensive coordinator change would have this man throwing a disgusting 250 passing attempts.
Yeah, he's getting it off volume, but he's still the QB7. It don't matter at the end of the day how you get there in fantasy, as long as you get there. QB8, Brock Purdy.
I had to take a shower reading that stat.
Crazy, dude. Brock Purdy, QB8. Yeah. Like ninth round at the highest, pretty much 10th round for his ADP.
And look no further, Andrew. And like we've talked about this before, like this is no secret, right? But look no further than like the worst fantasy asset, ever, which is Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes is what? Let's QB 22.
He is one spot ahead of Deshaun Watson in fantasy points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now I will say he's had his bye week.
He has
had his bye week, but even points per game, 15.3. We'll round up 15.3. Let's look at Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
Sam Darnold, 17.31. Who drafted Sam Darnold? I'm done drafting quarterbacks. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore.
Not early.
No, I'm not going to draft one until like the third last round. I don't like the very end of the draft. I do not care. I will find my quarterback. I do not care. In a one quarterback needs to start league with especially our main league where everyone is just hungry hippos on the freaking running backs and they're going to draft anybody with a fucking pulse at running back. I don't give a shit. I don't fucking care. I will find my guy.
You have to know your league too. And that is true.
That is part of your league. Yes. You have to know your league.
And the reality is like, I drafted Lamar, who I've been very happy
He's been fantastic. Yes, absolutely.
But the thing is that like, it also stopped me from, I probably could have picked up Baker Mayfield early when he had the first good week.
Right. You lag on the waiver wire because you're like, no, I drafted I spent a high pick on this guy.
And that's okay. Right. Well, here's the thing. Here's
when it works out.
Here's where you really get fucked. Are you ready for this? Because you were not this guy this year. You were the Patrick Mahomes guy last year.
I was.
Which I think is where a lot of this passion is coming from. But I'm
over that.
The guy who took a quarterback in the mid rounds that is giving them okay production, fine. They're okay. The guys that got murdered is this guy. The Patrick Mahomes guy that took his quarterback in the second round. Tough week for Patty. He's Patrick Mahomes. He'll be fine. Baker Mayfield goes off. Sam Darnold goes off. You don't get them on the waivers. 2 or 3 weeks go by. he's gonna bounce back. He's got his receivers, and then it's too late. Then it's too late. Because the first 3 weeks is the most predictive. It is what, or prescriptive rather.
Yeah.
It is what shows like these are the trends and this whatever. So you like you said, in our league where we are not very quarterback thirsty, there's always decent guys to stream. There's always going to be decent guys.
But that's
to
the thing.
good matchup or whatever. But there are some leagues where you could just get fucked.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even going to even go into 2 QB and super flex. That's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah,
that you have to draft quarterbacks there.
Right.
But like
a different sport.
Yeah, just whole different thing. But if you're in a 1 QB league, and keep in mind, our main league is also going to be it's only 10 people. So in a 12-teamer, it's a little different. But even still, 12-team league, Baker Mayfield was probably in the waivers. Sam Darnold on the waivers. Geno Smith, there's a good chance he was on the waivers. There are Justin Fields, who we said we're going to get back to. I know it's bullshit he got benched, and we'll talk about that right after this, but he's the QB6 at, within the first 6 weeks of the year. You could have picked him up and streamed him for a few weeks and been totally fine at QB, outperforming those people with Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, who lost his receivers for a bit and didn't have as quite a big of games. He's still going to be fine because he gets rushing touchdowns and all that. But you didn't need to spend a high pick to get, big time production from your QB. So, and it seems to prove itself over and over and over every year. I'm done doing that. I'm done. There's no need to do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the early QB thing is so dead. I mean, look, even Josh Allen, who's been fine, right? It's not like he's not having a bad season, but you didn't draft Josh Allen to be the QB5 with low pass attempts and low pass volume, right? Adding Amari Cooper probably will help him. That's great. Fine.
He'll end up a top 3, I think. He'll end up a top 3, but still.
Because he's automatically a top 3 every season because he just is. Josh fucking
he'll run the ball enough, and he does enough.
Okay, fine, like Josh Allen, but again, like if you're not getting crazy production from those early QBs, those first 3 round QBs, Jalen Hurts, bad pick this year. It was a bad pick. Granted, he lost his receivers. There's a lot of things that can happen, but
and for the overall, he did have a bye.
The spirit of what you're saying is absolutely true. Drafting a quarterback early, it's a fool's errand because there's in a 1 QB league, there's gonna be guys that you can get later in the draft. Like I'm still a proponent, like me. I went Jaden Daniels in 2 leagues. I should have gone Jaden Daniels in 4 fucking leagues. Like I should have gone all in. I was scared and I hedged. But there are guys that you can identify in those like later middle rounds that like if you think like, hey, this guy's way undervalued, please go get him. Like I'm not going to say like don't draft a quarterback whatsoever. But in the money rounds, in your first 5 rounds, it's a bad bet. It's a bad bet.
You know what might even be panning out to be an even worse pick than Mahomes, despite the ADP being lower. It's Anthony Richardson.
Oh yeah, man, that just didn't work. But we always kind of knew that there was a chance that could blow up in our faces, right? Like that was
week 1 looked incredible.
It looked awesome. Oh, if I could bottle up the feeling of week 1, especially as a Colts fan, like I was like, we're so back, baby, let's go.
Dude, it's like one of those things where it's like, man, you just want to like you plan a trip, like a 3-month trip to the Amazon rainforest, like right after week 1. That way you're just like living in that world of like, I know my Colts are just killing it. Anthony Richardson is like running the ball. It's like actually Joe Flacco's starting.
Hey, he's actually been pretty good.
No, Joe Flacco's been awesome, but that's not what you think when.
No,
and draft a guy 4th overall. The franchise is
that's not what's supposed to have been happening. Like I didn't think that we were drafting. And I'm not putting this on him because I still believe in the kid. But like you didn't. It was not the goal to draft Taysom Hill at the 104. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? That was not the goal, but yeah, no, I completely agree with that point. And I'll just amend this by saying, like, you shouldn't be drafting quarterbacks super early. But if one of the good rushing quarterbacks is available at a round value, I still think it's worth it because that gap is significant and that floor is significant. When you look at like consistency rankings and stuff, like a lot of these quarterbacks that are, that are like top 10 now, yeah, that's great, but it's sometimes on the back of 3 big weeks, where like the rushing quarterbacks give you a better weekly baseline.
Yeah.
However, all of that is window dressing. I agree with your point. The early quarterback thing, that's a 2010 thing. It's not a 2020s thing. Like, leave it in the past.
And the thing is, too, there's the last thing I'll say about this subject. There's so much depth at the QB position, which is what's proving my point more than anything. There's a lot of good, young, exciting quarterbacks that are coming into the league now. It's almost like becoming a requirement that you have to have some rushing ability to get drafted high now. It just makes an offense way too more dangerous. You are
It's
going to give
it's
defenses fits.
more and more popular. Guys like Shador are going to start coming in the league and stuff too. Like now, even at the youth levels and stuff, coaches are looking for that stuff. They're gonna keep coming to the league more and more, like guys that offer something with their legs, because it's hard to keep an O-line good for years, right? To have an awesome O-line year after year after year, it's hard to do, especially when you got to pay quarterbacks a butt ton of money, pay receivers a butt ton of money. So like, that's going to get more popular, a la Jaden Daniels and how awesome he's been early on Not a Great Team. I refer you to our time capsule episode. I'm not going to do it here, but I did plenty of J-Day glazing in that
For the
episode.
record, I agreed with you. I mean,
Yeah,
I didn't fight that.
he's
I think I
he's
did say there's a chance though that he falls off where teams start to figure him out. I did say that, but I still believe in him. I did
there's
then, even
a
then.
chance. I'm in. I'm all in, dude. He's like,
Yeah,
when you pop off and are that good for this stretch of time in an offense and a team that we all agreed was ass coming into the season. Caleb has been good. Give Caleb the credit after a
took him a
rough
few weeks.
weeks. He's been really good. Granted, I got to see them against a real test. They've had some cupcake matchups lately, but he's looked really good. But the Jaden Daniels Caleb thing, I think of that scene in Iron Man where like the evil guy is like, Tony Stark built this in a cave with scraps. That's that's how I feel about Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. Like, Caleb was supposed to be like awesome because he had like the receivers and the running back and the hype and this and that. And Daniels is doing it with one Terry McLaurin and a whole lot of bleh outside of that.
Don't disrespect Zach Ertz, man. Dude's a beast.
the,
Yeah, so
the ultimate catch and fall down guy.
I love it. So starting him in the league because tight end. But is there anybody else? So you've taken your victory lap on Jaden. I think I have some names written down. We've pretty much already said we were freaking wrong on Kincaid.
Yep.
Is there anybody in top of your head that you want to either victory lap or just admit being dead wrong about? Because I have a few.
I did my dead wrong in the time capsule. I don't think I need to. I mean, look, and I'll fucking do it again here. Just
We'll be quick. We don't have to go
shout out
super.
to my good friend Jeremy. You were right. White was a dud of a pick.
I said that too.
And that hurts me, both as a fantasy football player and as a Buccaneers fan. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of excuses that can be made. Ultimately, he hasn't been right. He hasn't been healthy. I don't think he's a great fit for the new scheme. Bucky has clearly been the better runner of the football, and Sean Tucker even got some run and got some good thump at the end of that smacking of
the old Kentuck.
what is
the
the Buck and Tuck, baby?
Yeah.
But like, so ultimately, I have to take my L on that. And the shitty part about this for fantasy football players is this: it is your best case scenario now is, and I hope you went out and got Bucky Irving as soon as you saw the writing on the wall, like I did. Your best case scenario is Rachaad White just disappears and goes away, and it is all Bucky all the time. However, I believe Todd Bowles when he says it. All three of these guys are going to have a role. I think Sean to a lesser degree, since he was basically put out an APB for this guy for the last season and a
Yeah.
half. But all of these guys are going to get run. So you are looking at a pure full committee right now. You're looking at a
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah. So Rachaad White's fantasy value has freaking cratered like super hard. Like, is he even startable? I don't even think is he even startable right now?
No,
Like,
no.
really?
Like the only, I don't know if I would go as far as to say that he's droppable yet, because again, there is a chance with some normalization. He has handled a large workload before, right? Somebody can get hurt, whatever. But there is a chance that he normalizes into some role with value that, he catches passes, whatever the case may be. So he's holdable on a bench if you can, as a handcuff committee back, like half of my freaking bench is. He is not startable until further notice. 0%.
Yeah, I agree with that. A few other people I wanted to just mention. I gotta say I was dead wrong. And I may have mentioned this last time, but I don't care. I'm quickly gonna say it again. Kyron Williams, dude's a touchdown machine. He's like the only show in town for LA, for the Rams to be more specific. So that's it. I don't have anything else to say. It's just I was wrong on that one. I was worried about him. I was wrong.
You were wrong about that because the community was kind of wrong about that too, because we just kind of assumed, hey, Blake Corum's going to eat into it a little more, or they're going to kind of go away from him, this, that, and the third. It wasn't so much an anti-Kyron thing, from my understanding. It was just like they would share the load, but
The 90% like running back share that he's getting or whatever it is.
he went right fucking back to the Kyron Williams that we know and love.
Yeah.
It's Kyron Williams.
And the last one I want to say I was wrong on is, now this player is game script dependent a bit, but he's still like the go-to guy in that offense, and it's a good offense. It's Zay Flowers. I was like just a like no way Zay kind of person, because I just felt like Lamar's never really supported a true wide receiver one, and it's still true. He's like the wide receiver 23 right now, but he's capable of big games. And Lamar is looking for him, and they are still designing plays for him. So, yeah, he's a wide receiver too with upside, but that was something that I didn't even have faith in. I was like, oh my God, he's like a glorified flex play. I don't want to spend a 6th rounder on that. So, but I was wrong. He actually is pretty damn solid.
As much as I want to victory lap and dance on your grave for the Zay take, I will actually come to your defense here. I drafted him and I even had my doubts, okay, because it is a low volume passing offense. So we have to make decisions in this realm based off of nothing more than assumptions. Okay, we're not in the meetings rooms with these people. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. It is a low volume passing offense. It is D. Henry all the time from what they want to do. So the thing with Zay that is still going to be true going forward, he's going to have some down weeks. He's going to have some dud weeks because if the Ravens do everything that they want to do on offense, then they are just going to play keep away and ground and pound you to death. But I think that the biggest difference from last season to this season has been not last season, this season, because he was hurt, but seasons past to this season is, hey, Mark Andrews is still the wide receiver one on this team. And that's what completely changed and completely went away. The man has been better. His route participation is going up, a little bit. Andrews has,
Yeah.
but he's nowhere nearly utilized in the passing game to where he was before. So even though it's a really narrow passing passing tree, Zay is their receiver one, and so he's, like you said, he's capable of some big games, and he's a talented player. Like the bet I took was not that I was super confident that this was going to happen. I just took the bet that, like, hey, he's a second-year receiver that has a little more rapport with his quarterback. He flashed good talent. He's on a good offense. Like that. That's really all that I took into it. So I'm pleased with the results, but he will have some down weeks for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a few guys I'm going to victory lap, and I'm not going to like speak too much on them because we've touched on these guys before. Besides maybe, well, we probably have, but three guys I pounded the table for early in the offseason. Derrick Henry, of course, we've talked about him already. Nico Collins. Yeah. Unfortunately, the injury, but Nico Collins was like the wide receiver one. So I pounded the table for Nico.
I overthought it.
Honestly, the Stephon Diggs entering that offense made it a little bit more murky. So it's understandable. But just from what I always saw from Nico, because I remember him coming out in college too and being like, this guy's good. I don't really understand why he wasn't as hyped. But anyways, I liked him a lot. I'm not saying I thought he was Jamar Chase or anything, but I liked him a lot. So anyways, whatever. I've said that a million times. And Deontay Johnson, I was like, I drafted him so many places because I was like, he is just a rock solid wide receiver. Now, it looked really bad until they finally dropped Bryce Young out of the starting lineup, and there you go. But yeah, I'm very happy with Deontay. I held on to him through those crappy weeks with Bryce.
Sometimes our takes being right or wrong, a lot of that just has to do with luck. You know what I mean? Like
in this case, yeah.
Who knows? Like, I mean, but also that's built into the take too, right? Like that eventually they could move on from Bryce. But you were right. The value was always going to be there. He's been a target earner everywhere he's gone. He's not even that old. So, like I think that, well, if you like the Adam Thielen movie last year, you're gonna love the sequel.
Yeah, exactly. And then one more I wanted to talk about, and this is on the negative side, but I think we're in agreement on this one, and we already talked about it, so we don't really need to go into it again. It was Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Glorified game manager, and that's all he has to be right now, so that's all he's going to be right now. But I will say, I do want to say, I think because the odds are against him, he's going into San Fran with the ragtag receivers again. He's going to go off. He's going to go off this game.
But that's the thing about these quarterbacks is that, like, okay, cool. You get to victory lap your week of like, yeah, this is the week that Patrick Mahomes did it for me. Like he's the king Mahomes. But it's like, dude, he's been murdering you for weeks.
That's the exception, not the rule now.
Yeah, like in fantasy, that's something that I learned really embarrassingly not that long ago. Because I would hold on to takes. I would hold on to. That's why I'm glad we did this in the time capsule 3 weeks ago. We're doing it again now. I had a bad take. I made a bad pick. I can continue to be fucking stubborn and sink my whole team, or I can take my L and move on. Something to learn.
Absolutely. It's even if you drafted a player and you put a high investment in them, if you can see it, if you get that sinking feeling while you're watching the games, or maybe even afterwards while you're looking at your lineup, and not after week 1, maybe not even after week 2, but after week 3, week 4, you get that sinking feeling and you just know, you can see it in front of you. Everything is screaming, this was a bad pick. This is not going to work. Find a way to move on, whether that's trading, dropping, whatever.
Chad and Kincaid, man. Like I ran out of copium after week 3. Like I had a supply, a little air tank of copium that I was huffing
through
those weeks. Once I ran out, I was like, "Fuck, this isn't gonna work out at all."
Kincaid being a tight end is like, okay, he's not really like a droppable player in like a normal 10 to 12 team league, but Rashad is approaching potential drop. Like he's
Close
approaching
to
that.
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing, like, and I promise you, this is not the Chod show, but I will say this: he is rosterable if it's for the most part, right? If it's a two-man backfield, because it's a good offense and they will
Yeah,
move the
it
ball.
is. It
He is
is.
rosterable. If it is a true three-headed monster, I mean, you
Yeah.
can't sink a roster spot like that. So we will see. We will see starting this week.
We shall. We shall. Who do they play, by the way?
Baltimore on Monday night.
Baltimore
Bro.
on Monday night.
The big test.
Oh wow, that
Yeah,
could be a fun game.
dude, I'll be fucking locked in. You better believe that shit.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be a fun game for sure.
Uh,
I don't really have.
Steelers quarterbacks.
Oh, that's right. We wanted to talk about that before we wrap up here.
Yeah.
You go first. You have a stronger take than me on this.
Well, I haven't heard your take, so I wonder if it is a strong. But yeah, I mean, I don't like it, but I think I might understand it, and I'll explain. Um, I don't think Fields has played badly at all. There's things you can point to. His completion percentage still isn't stellar, even though it is, I would say, better than a lot of other guys right now, because I think offenses are just generally kind of down around the league. The rushing is always going to be there, and it's not just for fantasy. I know that we have always, and I'm right there with it. Zoom back to probably 450 days ago on this pod, I probably was talking shit about Justin Fields because as fantasy players, we're going to overrate guys that give us points on the ground. But by the way, those are still yards in football. So he is still gaining yards on the ground and giving an element to that run game. He's scoring touchdowns on the ground. So I think there's things that he's been doing very well. Still taking too many sacks, in my opinion. Not nearly the Saka clause that he was in Chicago, but still a little, patting the ball a little too much back there. So I think there's things that you can point to and say, like, yeah, he still kind of has his issues here and there, but it's confusing to go to Russell Wilson now at 4-2. Seemingly Justin is playing honestly better than any of the Steelers quarterbacks we've seen in the last few seasons. If this is the Russ Wilson that we saw in Denver for 2 seasons, why would you do this? Now, again, there's things we don't know, right? It could be because it's not like Denver's been a great offense or Sean Payton has figured out, his situation over there. So maybe the Russell Wilson that they see in practice is a different Russell Wilson than we know. But if it's that same guy, I just don't get it. I don't get it. So I think it's understandable that maybe there's some stuff behind the scenes with Fields that, like, maybe he hasn't been as good as the numbers would tell us. But man, I don't know. Russ scares me.
Yeah, I don't like the move, but I kind of can't argue with Mike Tomlin. He just has winning seasons, barely, but he has winning seasons every year. And the Steelers have been pretty solid. You know, they've, what are they, 3-3 now? Or are they 4-2?
They're 4-2.
4-2. You're 4-2. You have a winning record with Justin Fields. Justin Fields hasn't been like a disaster. In Chicago, a lot of times he was a disaster, just like you said, getting sacked, fumbling, throwing bad interceptions, all of the above. He's not really been doing that, and they've been winning. Their offense has been okay. He's added that element. And I don't love that. I don't think any of the players are gonna come out, especially when they're winning, and be like, we want Justin. But you've got to think that if they don't win this game coming up, which I'm pretty sure they play the Jets, if they don't win, I think like automatically the players on the team are going to be like, yo, why the hell did we not start Justin? He's been winning. We've been doing well with him. We're building a chemistry. Why switch now? I don't know.
You set this man Russ up for that. You set him up for that because if you lose the game, which is very possible, you're going to be in a situation where they're like, what the hell? Like, could Justin Fields have won us this game? Do the Boo Birds come out in Pittsburgh? Like, so
I want to caveat that really quick though and say, if they lose, but Russell still plays well, no. If they lose and it's mostly because Russell plays like crap, then yeah, it's like mutiny.
If Russell plays well, first of all, let me not just be an idiot here. Who do they play?
Pretty sure they play the Jets.
They play the Jets. If Russell plays well, I don't really see how they lose. Because they've got everything else, right? The defense is really good. But look, I think that what they want, I think they know they need to get more vertical in the passing game and threaten with that more and have kind of closer to like the traditional offense that they want to have. I guess from a fantasy perspective, like this shouldn't be a referendum just on the Steelers team. How are we feeling about Pickens right now?
He has been a snip, snap player for me. I don't love Pickens as a player, as a prospect, because for fantasy purposes, and honestly for real football too, I really value the separators more than the jump ball winners. And there's only a few guys that have been elite jump ball winners that are just so good at it that it doesn't matter. That's like Julio Jones. DK Metcalf, not as good as that level, but he can do it. Mike Evans, he can do it consistently. And like these guys, T. Higgins is like these guys who can just physically dominate to the level where, yeah, I don't have to be the best separator because I'm bigger and stronger and have super strong hands, and I will come down with that ball over you like 75% of the times. Pickens just doesn't do it at a high enough level. He is a good ball winner. He is. But at the same time, his separation just is very rarely there. And I also don't, if you go look at reception perception, they're a lot smarter than us. And they do all this research and they have all the time in the world to do it. It's awesome. It will tell you the truth. But from what I can see, I see a guy who doesn't really win all that much in man and a guy who struggles to find spots in the zone. So when a lot of your production has to come on a broken defense, broken coverage, or you have to make a highlight grab, that is not a path to consistency in fantasy. And that's what we've seen. He'll have a blow-up game once a month. You get excited, and then he goes back to getting you 6 points. And it's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, well, you nailed it all on the head. And so we talked about this stuff in the offseason. And I remember that we talked about the fact that, like, maybe we were back in on George Pickens. Why, though? Right? Well, Russell Wilson's going to be the quarterback. Kenny Pickett.
Deontay was leaving.
Right? So, like, the opportunities were there. He's going into his second year. he is talented. Like there was nothing of what you said or
It's
what
his third year now.
or third season. Like nothing of what you said or what I said is that George Pickens is not a talented player. When, like I know that we poo-poo highlight plays, but highlight plays happen for a reason. It's because you did something athletically that not a lot of
Oh
other
yeah,
people do.
they matter.
Yeah.
They're just not. They're not a. They're not a.
They're not
What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah,
They're not,
they don't lead to consistent success in fantasy.
I thought coming into this season that the quarterback situation would be better, which it has, even without Wilson. Like,
Well, yeah,
no
Pickett
matter
sucks. Kenny Pickett sucks.
whether it's Wilson or Fields, I think we can agree that the quarterback situation is better for what it's worth. And I still think that there's an upside case here because Wilson does throw an accurate deep ball, but and will take some shots with some guys and will hone in on a number one guy. But I also think you're right on the flip side of that. You're also going to be a little gun shy to throw a 50-50 ball all the time, especially on a Mike Tomlin coach team that is a very ball control possession type team. That you don't want to be playing from behind all the time. So, and all of the other stuff, right? Loafing on routes, loafing on blocks, snap shares. He's not a full-time player. That's the crazy. So of all of the negative George Pickens conversations that I was having in my mind, I never considered, hey, he just won't be on the field in some two wide receiver sets. What?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to save his conditioning? A 23-year-old super athlete? That's cap, man. That's bull crap. That's not real. That means he's bullshitting in practice, and that means he's bullshitting on the field, and Tomlin is punishing him for it. So, like, on top of all the route stuff that you're talking about, all of that research is great. But for me, the vibes is what scares me away completely of Pickens. Of like, if like I'm not even a film guru. If I'm seeing you loaf, you better believe that the sharps in that Pittsburgh locker room are seeing you loaf, and I don't like that whatsoever.
Oh, dude, yeah. If you are coaching a team, even if you're watching a football game, just go back to like college or high school, whatever. You can see the whole field. You can tell, like, when a guy is not giving effort. Like you can tell that it's obvious, and they got all the angles. They know they got a million eyes on them. It is that, and that is the type of player that I just will never draft because there's too much risk there from all the things we talked about. There's too much risk there for me to really ever be fully bought in. And typically in the first few seasons of his career where he's gone in drafts, there's just other players I want there. So I don't have any Pickens this year. I probably won't have any Pickens next year unless I see it happen and it's consistent for some time. He's one of those players where it's like, all right, I'm just not about you. I feel the same way about Keon Coleman. That's like what I talked about earlier. I'm not about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I think Keon Coleman will have some fantasy value going forward, but I think that unfortunately for the Keon Coleman truthers out there, I think that if you are hoping for the new Steph Diggs, I would love to introduce you to Gabe Davis 2.0.
And that's exactly it.
Which has fantasy value, by the way, which is fantasy value, but not as much as you thought.
Exactly. So, yeah, man. Is there anybody else you want to talk about real quick, or?
Honestly, I think we're good. I mean, I really just wanted to check in with the people and just let the conversation flow and drop some takes and observations. you're at the point of the season now where you've seen enough. You've seen what's real and what's fake. Like the Pickens of the world. Like, obviously, you don't need us to tell you that your player's been inconsistent. You've seen he's been inconsistent. Russ coming in, hold him for another week or two, see if it gets any better. But if it doesn't, try to sell him. But yeah, that's all the advice I've really got for the folks out there. If anybody's still listening, we appreciate it. We do this just for you and because we love it selfishly. But if you love it too, drop a like, drop a comment. It helps us out.
Yeah.
Please, can I have some more?
Yeah, the old subscribe button over there. Yeah, man. All right, we're going to wrap this thing up. R.I.P. Andrew Thomas, you're a real one.
Shit.
I hope you can stay healthy one of these years. Love you, man.